All right, guys, welcome to your unique devotion. So today we're in 1 Timothy chapter 5 still. I'm going to read verses 3 through 16. It's entitled Honor True Widows. It's a little long, so I'm just going to hop right in. Honor widows who are really widows, but if any widow has children or grandchildren, let them first learn to show piety at home and to repay their parents, for this is good and acceptable before God. Now she who is really a widow and left alone trusts in God and continues in supplications and prayers night and day. But she who lives in pleasure is dead while she lives. And these things command, that they may be blameless. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Do not let a widow under 60 years old be taken into the number, and not unless she has been the wife of one man, well reported for good works. If she has brought up children, if she has lodged strangers, if she has washed the saints' feet, if she has relieved the afflicted, if she has diligently followed every good work. But refuse the younger widows, for when they have begun to grow wanton against Christ, they desire to marry, having condemnation because they have cast off their first faith. And besides, they learn to be idle, wandering about from house to house, and not only idle, but also gossips and busybodies, saying things which they ought not. Therefore, I desire that the younger widows marry, bear children, manage the house, give no opportunity to the adversary to speak reproachfully. For some have already turned aside after Satan. If any believing man or woman has widows, let them relieve them, and do not let the church be burdened, that it may relieve those who are really widows. Alright, so I kind of thought about breaking that up into sections, but as I got to reading, same thing started to keep coming out till I got to the end of that section, so I read the whole thing. And then we have one more section left for chapter 5. But the question that stood out to me wasn't necessarily about widows, though I bet maybe it does for you if you know any widows. Apply the knowledge that we've read here. Do you help those in need? That's a bigger question, I think, that encompasses more than just widows. And if I run into someone that is in need, and I'm not just talking about someone who is poor and destitute, what about your coworkers? When you see that they're not even necessarily struggling with something, but for where I work, there's always lots of stuff to do to keep the machines running, to keep things going, to keep up with in your mind. And if just for 1 second you can hop in and help the guy who's running the room get boxes, put bags on, just check a machine quick, help keep an eye on things, that really relieves stress, even though it may not be completely visible or obvious. It helps to relieve that stress. And maybe where you work, you see coworkers doing something, and you know if you help them out, even though they may not need help, or ask, it might relieve, instead of it taking them 10 minutes, it'll take them 5. Just relieve a little bit of stress for them, and it helps to build a togetherness in a community. One thing I want to point out before I go. Sometimes there are people in life that we talk ourselves out of helping for many reasons. For a homeless man, maybe you see him and he's like, well, if I give him $5, he's just going to use it for alcohol, so I'm not going to give him $5. If God is putting it on your heart to help them and you're talking yourself out of it, because that's what's happening, you saw it, and instead of thinking they're taken care of, God has them first, if your first thought is, "Oh, I really should help them," and it's sort of in the back of your mind, just a little seed, and then you talk yourself out of it, um, you're going the wrong direction. And it's not that you have to give them the world. It could be something as simple, maybe you have an apple with your lunch, you know, just offer them an apple. Offer them something simple. If money is something you don't feel like giving them, maybe it is food. Maybe you have the ability to talk to someone to help them get a job. Maybe you really go out on a limb and you help them get showered in your own home and feed them with a meal. God can talk to you in many different ways to help people. But what I'm saying here is, don't not help. Okay? Just because you don't want to. Find a small way, even if it's in just prayer. Don't use that as your crutch. Don't just pray. But maybe everything else makes you feel really uncomfortable, but praying doesn't. That's still helping. And pray fervently, pray honestly, and maybe even just take a moment and think about what you want to pray about, and then do it, and see what happens. You'd be amazed as to the changes that can happen if you pray for help, for healing, and be specific. So, do you help those in need? Keep your mind open to that today. See what happens. I hope that God gives you all the blessings you deserve, and even more so, all the blessings you don't deserve. Have a wonderful day, and I hope you help at least one person today. I'll see you tomorrow.